XconMedia.
Welcome to XconMedia. Appreciate you tapping in. I got a couple of guests tonight. Maybe my guest, my co-host from Setbacks to Success, he may be in a little later. But however, I got my good friend, Damian Butler. We've been friends since I was in the halfway house. That was 2013. And we got former sheriff of Clayton County, Victor Hill. I voted for him when I got my voting rights back.
What? Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, man, how y'all doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Good to be here again.
That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. All right.
It's the best day of my life, brother. I don't know how I can get no better.
I know that's right.
Yeah. I need to hear about that.
Yeah.
Flow right on into it. Tell them where they can find you at on your shout out your social medias.
I'm at best day of my life on YouTube and on Instagram. I also have another page called Stay Out of Prison. In person, I'm the Moonwalk Man. In person, I'm an anger management specialist. We work with clients before they go to court, but if you just want to do it the hard way, you can wait. You can get sentenced to anger management, and then you can come see me then. It's totally up to you, But we're here to help out, whether it be in the system, out of the system, preventing people to go to the system. And at the end of the day, man, we're just humans that want to see humans treated like humans, if that makes sense.
For sure. And you did do prison time, right?
I did do prison time from I'm 48 now. At the age of 19, I thought it would be a bright idea to rob a grocery store. Unfortunately, the DeKalb County has a paid staff that stops people from trying to do such acts. I was not a career criminal. I was supposed to graduate June 1996. By November 1996, I was being asked to plead out to 40 years for armed robbery. It wasn't where I was supposed to be. But I took advantage of the situation, man. I took advantage of the situation. I was sent to one of the worst places in the state of Georgia at the time, which was Alto State Prison, which was closed down because of the excess murders and rapes and robberies. But I understood that the only thing that's separating the haves from the have-nots is the knowing and the unknowing. And so in shorter terms, just education. The more that you understand about life, the better off you'll be. The higher the emotional intelligence, the better decision making, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
So I just tried to learn everything that I could, bro. Came home, jumped right into the classroom. I got a full pardon from the state. I got a license to carry from the state. I started working inside the prison system. When I go now, it's an invoice involved.
That's right.
Whether it be the GDC or the Panthersville RYDC right up the street. The goal is to reduce recidivism. We try to connect that to an invoice, but if not, we'll try to do it without an invoice. But at the end of the day, the bills got to be paid, brother. Most importantly, man, we're just trying to live out our assignments. Sometimes we get assignments that come in different ways. So, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Listen, I didn't see you. I've been knowing you, so I know you did free work.
Yeah, without a doubt.
For sure, man. Sheriff, because I voted you in. So as far as I'm concerned, you still in.
Sheriff.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Hey, they removed you falsely. So they broke the law to get you out of there. So far as I'm concerned, you still share. But go ahead on and introduce yourself, plug your social medias and all that good stuff.
All right. Well, I'm former Sheriff Victor Hill. I'm now a candidate for the United States Congress in the 5th Congressional District. I too have a podcast with my brother. It's called The Hill of Justice. It's on YouTube. And of course, I have social media on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and I can be reaching those platforms as well, just right under my name or either under Sheriff Victor Hill. And of course, invite everybody to that. I'm on there every day now that I'm on the campaign trail. And I made a promise that every day of this campaign, people are going to hear directly from me. They don't have to go to channel 2, channel 5. They'll hear directly from me. And then I'll also be coming on platforms like this. I won't be dealing with mainstream media because we know why. They cut, they edit, they lie by omission as well as commission. And, it's an interesting mission I'm on because I've seen both. I can't say I've been on both sides of the law because I was falsely accused, but I've seen both sides because I've been in federal prison based on a lawfare political prosecution. So, and I was asked the other day on the show, tell me how you helped the guys that was in prison. And it stunned me for a second. I told him, I said, I really can't tell you that I was helping them. They were helping me. They were my professors, my protectors. They helped me write the book. It's their idea I run for Congress. So it was almost like I went to a university. Just like my man, it was one of the worst prisons, one of the top 10 worst prisons in the federal prison. That was by design, no doubt. They put me in the most violent housing unit. But what they thought was going to be the lion's den for me ended up being a university. And that's how this race was born. I'll just say this briefly, then we can start chopping it up. I'm on two sides of the spectrum here in this race because I'm fighting for two individuals. I'm not just fighting for people wrongfully convicted. I'm fighting for people rightfully convicted. Like my man, he just said, hey, I had the bright idea to rob a grocery store. He admitted that. For 40 years, that's what we give people who kill people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And to give that type of time out destroys not just his life, but the lives around him. And we're paying an extraordinary amount of money. They're trying, because you said you were 19, right?
I was 19. Now, I wasn't sentenced to 40. I ended up serving 10.
Right, but they tried to sentence you to 40. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I know you. I know you ain't old enough for that sentence. Right. But what I'm saying is this: people get those type of ridiculous sentencing. If I could say I helped anybody while I was in prison, the only thing I could think of, all those guys were my professors. I talked a guy out of suicide one time, and guess why I talked him out? He got 30 years. And every appeal that he didn't say he didn't do it. He didn't say it was right. He was just saying that the sentencing was unjust. And I agree. He received a video he shouldn't have received. And he admits to that. The person who made the video got 5 years. He got 30 years. And so when his last appeal didn't go through, he told me, he said, I can't live here for 30 years like this or whatever. And he told me he was going to off himself. And so if I helped anybody, I would like to think I helped him. But I got to give the credit to my professors. They're the author of my book, Vigilante Sheriff, which is on Amazon. It's an audio, it's an ebook, it's a book. And they're the ones that asked me to run for Congress. They're the ones that told me, hey, look, they made you a convicted felon so you couldn't run for office. That was the whole objective. But you can run for Congress. And you should run for Congress because you can help us better in Congress than you could in the county. You can just help one jail and one group of people. In Congress, you can have an effect for all of us across the nation, even out there in Arkansas where I was. And that's how I became a candidate for the United States Congress.
Oh, wow. That's dope. That's dope, man. I like that. Me, myself, I mean, most of my audience know me, man, but hey, I had this bright idea to, commit an armed robbery with somebody else. We got away. I got caught. I went to prison for 16 years. You know what I'm saying? So I had a lot of ups and downs. When I left the street, my son was 2. When I got out, he was 18. It just, going to prison really messed up a lot of other people's life, not just my own, but a lot of times we don't understand that it messes with family. It messes family up. You know what I'm saying? So I don't blame anybody but myself for what I did. See, I'm not like, you, whereas I was wrongfully convicted. I did what I did, but my thing is, I think I was over sentenced a little bit. The maximum on my charge was 20 years. I didn't have any prior convictions, and the judge gave me 16 because I decided to take it to trial. I mean, go figure. You know what I'm saying? So I served my time, and once I got out of Clayton County Transitional Center, shout out to Pam Wiggins. I'm still looking for her, because Pam Wiggins said something. She was the warden at the Clayton County Transitional Center, and she said she was sending people back to prison left and right. And she got in the class because she was pissed that day. You know what I'm saying? And the one thing she said is, I can't want it for you worse than you want it for yourself. And when I tell you that stuck with me for life, I'm gonna catch up with her just to thank her for that statement, because if it didn't hit anybody else, it hit me. So but yeah, that's my story. Once I got out, I got a nearly full pardon in 2020. So we still working on some other stuff.
When you
But
say
yeah,
nearly full pardon, why
nearly
you say
full,
nearly?
because it says full pardon, but they didn't return my gun rights. Now that could be changed in the next 60 days, because I'm at 4 months now. So that could change in the next 60 days. I'm looking forward to change in the next 60 days, because I think this time they're gonna give them back to me.
Okay.
Yeah. But they're gonna keep seeing me until they give them to me.
Yeah,
So
it's just some paperwork.
yeah, that's it.
So let's discuss that. Let's discuss that for a second.
Okay.
It was interesting, man. I had a lot of interest in debates. Like I said, those guys, now don't get me wrong, everybody there wasn't intellectual. There was folks selling drugs, doing what people do, stabbing folks or whatever like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't everybody. And we had some interesting discussions. And one was about gun rights. And what they were saying is that, okay, if you committed a violent crime with a gun, maybe we could see that. Okay. But let's say you're there for tax evasion, you're there for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that I could never go hunting again, or I could never have something to protect my family again?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a legitimate point, because, and even in your guys' case, it's a legitimate point, because, okay, again, look at the age you were when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the same person you are when you're 19 and when you're 35 or whatever like that.
Right.
And so basically what we're doing is giving people a life sentence. And I've said this 100 times before, we invite everybody to church and tell them the Lord's going to forgive you all your sins. But we don't forgive, and the system doesn't forgive.
No.
So they're saying you get a felony when you're 19, and then you're going to have a life sentence of not having certain rights the rest of your life. If you paid your debt to society, if you did everything that you're supposed to do, why can't you run for office? Why can't you do certain things again? There are countries where when you run for political office, you have to go to the prison. The prison is like a precinct. You got to debate because you want those particular votes. Right. But in our country right now, the free and the brave, the conviction is being used to disqualify people from certain things. And the problem with laws like that is when you do that, then you get prosecutors and judges like the one I had, where it's not about justice, it's about conviction, because they're trying to disqualify you from doing something. So, okay, well, if this guy runs, he's going to win, but the only way for us to stop him from running is to put a conviction on him. And then now we're seeing the criminal justice system being used that way in lawfare, not just with politicians, not just with celebrities, but from people with all walks of life. And again, it's about convictions as opposed to justice. And that's why, can we change these judges and prosecutors? That's hard to do. But we can do things with the system that can put checks and balances on them. That's hard for them just to mass produce convictions on people, so they can give these people convicted a felon status, so they can disqualify them from stuff that they want to do.
I think that the agenda at hand, I when I look at certain things, I often go down the rabbit hole and I try to look at the full effect of things. So I am a convicted felon. I do have a full partner. I do have a license to carry. I got a house full of pistols. They all legal. But what I do, if I'm being blatantly honest, the United States has the highest prison population in the world. It's not by chance. It's by design. Georgia has one of the highest percentages of recidivism, which is the rate at which individuals return back to prison. So they're only expecting you to stay out about 18 months. I interact with people that I've been incarcerated with, but to an extent. I'm ready for a firearm. And even when I first received my rights, I still had to condition myself. When I say that, I ride motorcycles. So as soon as I got that card and I went to the gun shop and I slapped it on the table like it was the ace of spades, and I just started buying guns, I wore my gun on my hip. Because I was like, I'm happy I couldn't wait. I envisioned myself doing this. But then I thought about all the attention that I was bringing to myself. And I said, is this smart? Because if a robber or somebody's gonna come in and they're gonna do something, I'm gonna be in their way. They're gonna get me out the way first.
Absolutely.
So now, if I have it on me, I've got it in a holster inside my pants where you can't see it. And sometimes, you know what? At 48, if I gotta take my gun somewhere, I don't even want to go.
I'm glad you said that.
I don't want to go.
I'm glad you said that.
Also, I understand that some of the people that had some of the same crimes and some to a lesser degree, I would not trust some of these people with firearms. And I'm just being honest with you, because of the mentality, because the system has failed them to a certain degree. There's been no shifting of the paradigm. There's been no awakening. It's just a matter of time for they go back to chain gang. It's just that close away. Because they're not utilizing emotional intelligence. We at a point where it's so many shootings everywhere with older and younger people. A lot of us, we don't have the intellect. I went and got trained to clean my firearm, and I learned about safety. And I recommend that for everybody, man. And then you got to understand that when you got a firearm, you're not just thinking for yourself. You got to think for everybody that's in your vicinity, because you're going to run into some idiots. I live right around the corner from County Road. Let me tell you something. And you got to just be careful. You got to be careful, but you got to think for other people. Okay, that's a full-blown idiot. Let me just go the other way. Or let me just smile. Or let me make sure they see my gray hair so I can get on up out of here. But I'm not saying I agree with the standards in the law, but I understand as a whole, an inmate in the state of Georgia, it costs $30,000 to $40,000 a year to house this individual. The state of Georgia has about 50,000 inmates. That's about $1.5 billion. That's a business, baby. Ever since slavery ended in 1865, the prison population has gone up. And if they keep dropping this drill music, it ain't gonna do nothing but get stronger and stronger. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Go ahead. You have something?
Nah, what you got?
Well, let me just say this. You got a lot of good points there. And the crazy part is, I just spoke about this the other day on my social media. Convicted felons can't get certain jobs, like they can't get in law enforcement. So think about this. You can't become a correctional officer if you're a convicted felon.
Right.
But when you look at all of the jails, you look at the jail I used to command, the prison that I was at, the place is full with drugs, full with drug dealers. How it gets there, the non-convicted felons are bringing the drugs in to sell it. So, we tell these folks, hey, okay, you can't be a prison guard because you're a convicted felon. You was once in prison. But the people we tell can be prison guards are committing felonies. You tell a man, okay, he can't run for office because he's a convicted felon, but the people committed felonies and make me a convicted felon because they lied to a grand jury. You got prosecutors lying to a grand jury. You got the judge rigging the case. So these people aren't convicted felons, but yet they're committing perjury. You and I go and lie to a grand jury, you know what's going to happen. So I don't, it's a delicate balance, because there are a lot of people who they're not convicted felons. They haven't had to go through a psych exam, and they crazy as hell, but they can walk in and buy a gun anytime they want because they don't have this conviction, and they didn't, what I'm saying? So, And then you brought up another interesting point that was strong and on point, man. And I had this conversation with a gentleman that he and I was in there at the same time. That he was real upset about his gun rights because he was a gun enthusiast. And he was like, I don't know how they expect me to be out there and I can't protect myself. But I told him something. I said, listen, man, it seems, don't get me wrong, man. I love guns. I was trained by a gunfighter. You can go on the internet and see the skills. I was a sniper. But the one thing I want him to be clear on, I said, look, you can't even be a cop and shoot somebody now without someone trying to charge you with murder, even if you're right. So imagine you get in a shootout and you win in a self-defense. These prosecutors still going to charge you with murder. And now you still got to figure out how not to spend the rest of life in prison when you're saying, hey, this is self-defense. And these folks are trying to get convictions. They're not really interested in what happened. And if they can get a murder conviction on you, they can and they will. I once had an accidental shooting and they were hoping the person was going to die. And when the person didn't die, they were trying to upgrade it to aggravated assault, even though they said, hey, it was a training accident. So you got to think about that, because it's not just as simple that you can be. And I used to live off of Candler Road too, my man, when I first came here. Yeah. But it's not that simple. You go to Candler Road to a store, you get in a shootout, and hey, I defended myself and I'm good. Hey, you good? That was not, well, if you want to call it good, it was justifiable. You go home. Odds are you kill somebody, you could be dead to the right. They're gonna drop a murder charge on you just for GP.
Right.
So I think, exactly. So I think that you said something profound, man. I heard it said a different way. Is it the best way not to get shot in the club is don't be in the club? That way you can't get shot in the club.
That's
right.
It.
Right. And once I decided to go a certain way in my career, I could once I became sheriff, I could never go in the club again.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't, because I'm the guy that comes to the club after people get shot. So if I'm in there while they're getting shot, it complicates things.
It's hard to do it.
Right.
I do the formula. Anytime you add a bunch of grown black men with new tennis shoes, with alcohol, and half-naked women, it's going to be paperwork involved. And I'm not even being racist, but it's going to be some paperwork involved, possibly some yellow tape. It's just a formula.
And you're right about that. You're right. And you're absolutely right about that. So one day we'll get on here and we'll talk about the past. But I think those are two profound points and something for people to think about. And I'm no stranger to the hood, obviously. A lot of people don't know my history. Actually, my family, we lived on a housing project when I was real young. My mother worked to get us off of there. And probably just in time, because we missed the crack epidemic right at that particular time. And then, of course, most of my life was spent as a street cop. And of course, that's our roots. We're always going to love the hood, the people in the hood, the music, the food. But, there has to come a time where you got to know, okay, well, if I'm there on business, I'm there on business. But you got to pick and choose where you go, because like you said, and I thought it was brilliant, if it's somewhere where I'm going to need my gun, I probably don't need to go. Because the places I went where I needed my gun, I went in the capacity as a sheriff. And that's the reason I had a gun. I was a sheriff. But now that I'm not the sheriff, there's no real reason to go there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I got a question.
Sure.
Because right now, all of the prisons are locked down because they've got this Muslim on Bloods riots just taking off everywhere. Okay, so I was looking at an interview that you did with a ex-state trooper, and you said that there's an individual who was at your facility, and because you ran a tight camp, he was able to get off of drugs. And he thanked you, and you was like, for what? And he was like, man, I wasn't able to get no drugs there. So right now, I'm talking to people who are coming home, guys who are going in for, theft, whatever the crime is, but they don't have drug addictions. But now when they're coming home, they've got drug addictions. And then I'm looking at I'm looking at the drones going into the Georgia Department of Corrections, and then I'm looking at an increase of stabbings. In the month of April, you had about 37 people who were stabbed and killed in the Georgia Department of Corrections. These are alarming numbers. This is ridiculous.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Let me just hypothetically, if
Yes, sir.
you understand how a facility works, and I've never been in Clayton County Jail, and I don't want to go. But how would you possibly handle the influx of drugs and the multiple deaths inside the Georgia Department of Corrections?
Easy. Now, of course, it'd be a much bigger job because they have a lot of facilities. But let me tell you what I did. You know, first of all, before I became sheriff, I never ran a jail or worked a jail a day in my life. So I didn't have any correctional experience. My time was always spent as a patrol officer, then the majority was spent as a homicide detective. So I specialized in violent crime. So anyway, when I took over the jail was pretty wild then. It had a lot of escapes. It was down in Lovejoy. Matter of fact, I locked up 5 guys for armed robbery, and all 5 escaped from that jail. They somehow got up through the roof and jumped from the front of the building and got out. You remember that? Yeah. And that was my case, and it took a while to get them on those robberies. And then I don't know how long it took them to get them back. And then also, when they moved to the new jail, 2 murderers escaped from that jail, and that was related to a case of mine. Actually, it was. I worked a home invasion robbery at a house, and I locked his brother up. He didn't want his brother to go to prison, so he went to the house and started executing everybody in there so they would testify against his brother. Here's the problem. It was a duplex, and he was at the wrong one. So he opened, the door opens, he shoots the man. When he opens the door, he chases this woman, and he shoots 2 people, and then when he gets to her, there's a baby in her hand. And he points a gun, and by that time, he's got so many bullets, he didn't realize he was out of it. That's who escaped out of jail. But I'm getting off track. Let's get to this. Man, I'm going to tell you right now how I stopped the drugs from getting in there. It's not rocket science. I'm not a genius. An angel didn't come down and visit me. It's just as simple. Usually at every jail, there's 4 or 5 ways to get in. Nurses and doctors might come through this way, warehouse people this way or that. I was like, the hell with that. Everybody gets in this jail this way.
Through this door.
Nobody else comes through any other door. Everybody, including me, is searched. There's a camera there filming, and I can look at it. I can wake up out my sleep at night and get bored and say, let me see if these folks are searching. But it's also recorded. Every now and then a drug dog is there just for GP. Mm-hmm. So everybody has to be searched. If you got to take a cigarette break and you only smoke for 2 minutes, when you come back, you get searched again. So that way we know, okay, it could have only got through this way because nobody better be coming in any other way.
Right.
And then you kind of got to do it. Like I bought this old lake house and I refurbished it, and I learned something from the pest control people. It was a 30-year-old house. So of course you buy a lake, and with lakes you're gonna have snakes, or wherever you have snakes, you're gonna have rodents or whatever like that. Well, they did something interesting. Before I moved in the house, hey, I want to make sure they sealed the house to make sure nothing could get in it. Make sure that, okay, a snake can't squeeze in, a rodent can't squeeze in. But then after they sealed the house, for 4 weeks, they put traps in there. Because once you seal it, that don't mean there wasn't a snake or a rodent already in there.
Right.
Okay. And when they sealed it, they killed they found some mice in the basement, the garage, and there was a roof rat. And once I moved in, there was never one in there because they sealed it, and then they did a good search. Mm-hmm. Well, that's all I did with the jail. I sealed it, and then we shook the jail. And we didn't just shake it one time. I told them I want my jail shaking every day. I want to drive down Terra Boulevard and feel like there's an earthquake. And I could be like, oh, damn, they're shaking down the jail again. You know what I'm saying? And there's no drugs, no cell phone. It wasn't rocket science. But here's the other thing. Remember this now. Remember, a lot of what you see, this political fight and this fight that put me in prison or whatever, I made a lot of enemies because I fired a lot of people. People thought I was hard on criminals, but I was even harder on the correctional officers. I had to, the so-called he ruled with fear and intimidation. I damn sure did. I had no choice because it was the guards that I had to really watch because drugs don't float into the jail.
Right.
So I had to constantly discipline or fire them in order to keep the place safe. So, of course, everybody's going, oh, my God, he's firing everybody's this and that, because I had political enemies that they were using lawfare. Anyone I fired, hey, go sue. Let's fill them up with lawsuits. But everyone I fired needed to be fired. Everyone I put in jail should have been in jail. And everyone that I ever said we need to restrain need to be restrained. That's the truth of it. They can say what they want. I think like Todd Chrisley say, whether you believe me or not, I'm innocent. But I had to be more, my iron fist had to be more on the guards than the inmates. The inmates can only do what you allow them to. It's like running a daycare center. Okay, we know kids are bad, but they can only do so much if you allow them to do it. Right. So again, if you're not bringing drugs in there, they can't get high and overdose. 5 people died of overdose in that 10 months I was in federal prison. I know, I can only imagine what y'all see. And I saw everything from K2 to methamphetamine to everything was there. And what's so crazy is we're going to lock somebody up and give him 30 years. There's a lot of guys there serving 30 years and 20 years for drugs, which I've always thought was ridiculous. I'm going to quiz y'all on something. So you guys hear all this stuff about Victor Hill and how hard I am on crime. Tell me about how many drug dealers you heard I was locked up. Can you remember? And I'm not saying I haven't locked up drug dealers, but tell me how many.
Right, I can't recall.
I really didn't lock up a lot of them. Let me tell you why. I wasn't so much concerned with locking them up as I was stopping them from selling drugs or making them leave Clayton County. If let's say you the kingpin, if I lock you up, all you're gonna do is replace another kingpin. Matter of fact, they used to help. Hey, here, get him out of here so I can be the kingpin. Right. Okay. So we still got drugs. But if I stop your ability to sell drugs, problem solved. Okay, if you run a trap house, I put a car in front of the trap house. You can't sell drugs no more. So you either stop or you leave or you go to another county or whatever. Grandmama is happy, the church mother's happy, the kids can play, they not get shot. Okay, well, I put a road check or whatever. I stopped the ability of them to sell drugs, just like I stopped the ability of people to bring drugs into the facility. Because if locking up people for 30 and 40 years actually solved the problem, then how we got all the drugs we still got on the street and how we going to put them in a facility full of drugs? So you missing the point. The point is just like you got to stop the 2-year-old from getting to the Clorox and swallowing it. You stop their ability from being able to sell the drugs. That's how I ran the drug dealers out of Clayton County. Now, they weren't happy, but guess what? They didn't go to jail. And the people on the street was happy because they didn't have to worry when someone got in an argument about who's going to sell drugs and they shoot and they miss and they end up shooting somebody's child or whatever like that. So if you control the territory, you can control the crime. I love chess, but my favorite game is Go. Go is an ancient Chinese game, and it's the only game that approximates war like chess does. And all the Go masters, the real ones, sometimes they don't capture a single piece. All they do is control the territory and they win the game. Chess, we're trying to capture the king. And that's how we've been doing with drug dealers all this time. Let's capture the kingpin. If you control the territory, you ain't even worried about it.
It's a non-issue.
Right. Now, let me say this. I got tore up in that prison on chess. I met some real chess masters there, and I had to say, hey, your kung fu is better than mine. But I did have some Go strategy they didn't know about. So that there you go.
Okay. I actually have a program at DeKalb Juvenile where I work with at-risk youth, and I teach them the game of chess. Now I mesh it with emotional intelligence, but my whole thing is if you can come in and learn how to move these 16 pieces, then you can go into a business and learn the ins and outs. You can go to a classroom and learn what it is that you need to know, but it's a continuous struggle. So I'm gonna be honest with you today. I tried to find a reason to hate you, Victor Hill. I tried in my mind. I did because this is what I saw when I saw Fox 5. I saw you saying some things that were a tad bit arrogant. And then when I went to Channel 11, I seen some more. I said, man, this dude off the chain. But then when I sat down and I started listening to interviews and where you were able to explain certain things, it just kind of made sense. Like from I drove from here to Warner Robins. I was just like, I don't know. Because then I thought about how do you take control of a place that is out of whack? And so with me, because I have been to prison, chain gang rules are in effect. And when I say chain gang rules are in effect, this is how you have to move in chain gang. You have to make an example. And if you're not willing to make an example, you can prepare to be a victim. You can prepare to have your name changed and possibly your throat rearranged. If that makes sense. So
very true.
So when I started paying attention, I was like, oh, then I went to another interview and you were saying this and this, and I need to get that book.
I'm gonna get it too.
I need to get that book. Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon, and it's also audio. And I actually recorded it. I actually read it.
It's an audio book.
Yeah.
Right. I think that anytime you're gonna come in and you're gonna restructure something and you're gonna demand that that people operate from a position of integrity, hey man, you got to draw the line. If you're not willing to draw the line, you ain't gonna get nothing done. And it's just that simple. Just that simple.
I appreciate that. And again, the media, they can paint a picture.
Oh, man. They chop
and exactly. And they lie by omission as well as commission, kind of like the trial. It's not always what people say. There can be a direct lie. Like in my case, everybody mysteriously claimed they urinated on themselves. And a lot of people don't know. Here's what they omitted. A lot of people don't know that all these 6 people that I ordered to be restrained, a lot of them were contacted a year after they already left jail. They went through 630 reports and found the 7 times they thought it was 7 times. One, they found out in trial I didn't order it, but they never indicted the guy who did. Mm-hmm. They thought I ordered it, but didn't. And that goes to show that it was targeted. But I want to give you an example. Okay. You can lie by commission. So you got 6 guys that never made a complaint that got contacted a year later. Oh, yeah. I was in the chair. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I did feel pain. Oh, yeah. I did urinate on myself. No decontamination reports. No pictures showing any urine anywhere or whatever. So that's lying by commission. But the omission part is where they failed to tell the jury and didn't allow us to tell the jury that these guys had already been out of jail, never made a complaint, never said anything. And then what they really admitted is that it started over a political campaign. The guy that they came to the office over was a guy working on a campaign to unseat me as sheriff. But they would not use that particular case because they know it would prove that it was political. They want to make it seem as if though, hey, this guy's torturing people. Never laid a hand on them. They were checked every 15 minutes by a nurse. And by officers, and checked before they got in the chair and out of the chair by a nurse. Everyone claiming that their wrist hurt. The nurse would check to make sure it wasn't too tight. That was protocol. Mm-hmm. So that's why we got to attack this system, because see, here's the thing. Most people would probably never even get in the system if it wasn't for a grand jury. And most people don't know America's the only place left with a grand jury.
Thanks.
And it's okay. It's archaic, and it's like a star chamber, because the prosecutor can go in there and tell a grand jury whatever he wants, and there's no checks and balances just to get the indictment. And then once you're indicted, you're in the system. But then let's just say you did make a mistake. Like you guys have said, okay, yeah, I made a mistake. Well, then you get overcharged. Then you get oversentenced. Then you got to deal with the stigma of what you can do and what you can't do. Mm-hmm. And so, the first thing we got to fix is how we even get a lot of these convictions. Okay, but if it's a legitimate conviction, okay, fine. But even if it's a legitimate conviction, do we punish you the rest of your life? Or do you just take the punishment for a lot of the time? And is the punishment proper? Because how does a guy with a nonviolent drug conviction gets 30 years? 30 years is what you give people for killing people.
Right.
So that's the type of stuff that I want to fight in Congress.
Got you. So I have 2 things.
Sure.
One of them is when you were talking, not just now, but in previous interviews. In my mind, I was like, some of this stuff has to be a political move, and they move a different way. And I came to a conclusion because I started thinking about back in the days when in DeKalb County, I think we had a sheriff that had another sheriff killed. And I started.
You gonna read about that in my book.
I said, man, you know, politicians and lawmakers, these the real gangsters. They ain't playing around, man.
They gangsters with a badge.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate to say it, but well, you know, I do hate to say it because people accuse me of being a gangster. But let me say this: there's an old saying that politics is war without bloodshed, and war is politics with bloodshed. Well, that's no longer the case. You know, if you're in a particular position and they feel that they can't unseat you, which is how they felt in Clayton County, the DA, and these people, I name them in the book, Tasha Mosley, Jeff Turner, all the people who are behind it, the judge that's friends with the DA. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. There's only two ways. If the people are for you, there's only two ways to stop you from winning. And that's to either kill you or indict you. That's the only way they can stop it. And that's why you see these assassinations and these political assassinations. And you know, and the thing is this, and you know, a lot of people don't like when I say this, and that's fine, but this is the truth. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's kind of like even if you look at the presidential race, if you don't like a person, you don't vote for them. But to indict a person or kill a person, that's supposed to be third world. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, you got all these folks. I've heard people, yeah, well, I want to see them go to jail. I want to see such and such and such and such. You know, it's amazing, man. We grew up in this country and they tell us that you can be the president if you want to, but they didn't tell us that folks will indict you and try and put you in prison or disqualify you by indictment or whatever. And that's what you see in here. And that's another reason why I picked the 5th District. The 5th District is comprised of DeKalb County, Clayton County, and Fulton County. And we've seen lawfare in those 3 counties. DeKalb, you saw the sheriff killed. Then you saw the CEO indicted and sent to prison by that DA's office. Okay, mm-hmm. Fulton County, I don't even need to talk about that lunatic. Clayton County, we got the situation where you see what the DA's office tried with me. This ain't the first time they tried. If you recall, back in 2012, I was indicted on RICO. And a lot of people don't understand, you know, the media would never put out, okay, what exactly did they say he did? Well, I was accused of stealing my police car 5 times. They say every time I drove the car out of town, it was theft. Every time I put gas in it. So this is a criminal enterprise. So they made a case that was less than $2,000 RICO. RICO was designed for the mob. It was designed for whatever. But you see these crazy prosecutors like we got even using RICO to lock up school teachers. And that's why the guys, they had this idea for me to run for Congress because it's not, you can't wait every 4 years to replace these crazy DAs. But if we were just able to either abolish or reform the grand jury system, a lot of this stuff would stop. If you were allowed to be in there when they present a case and have your attorney and rebut the evidence they have that they probably don't have because a lot of them lied, like in my case, half of these indictments you wouldn't see, half the people in prison you wouldn't see. And think about this. You're talking about the $1 billion for Georgia. I think the federal prison is $6 billion, probably more than that. And people don't understand how astronomical that is. If you lay $1 billion in the end, it will circle the earth 4 times. If you sleep 1 billion seconds, you sleep 32 years.
Wow.
So we haven't even lived 2 billion seconds yet.
Right.
So we got to. And then here, and here's one other thing I want to add to it. When I got elected to the House of Representatives back in 2002, the state turned red for the first time. So we had a Republican senator, a Republican governor. So what did I do? Did I go down there and start calling them racist and all kind of stuff like that? Didn't do that. What I did is, okay, what can we work to get done together? There's some things we couldn't work on together, and that's fine. But what could we accomplish together? And the first thing couldn't work with them on that particular issue. But I was like, hey, I do want to work with you. Told the governor, I do want to work with you. I just can't work with you on that. And we were able to get some things done. There are actually, most people don't know this, but there are actually 4 bills in Georgia, 4 laws that I authored, and my name is on that law. The one I'm most proud of would be House Bill 1093 at that time. And that had to do with protecting kids from being molested. And it caused people who had molested kids before not to be able to get jobs at daycare centers and elementary schools and be able to molest these kids again.
Right.
So I say that to say this: we got an opportunity that now that we can't let go. There's a Black woman who's a pardon czar, a woman that was sentenced to life for a nonviolent drug offense, so she knows what's going on. There's a man that was just appointed to be second in command of BOP. He served time in federal prison. Okay. We have everyone up to including the president who knows what it's like to be indicted by these crazy DAs. If we ever had a chance to change the criminal justice system, it's now. Even if we can't agree on nothing else. And I understand, right. I understand, okay, well, they don't like this, they don't like that. I got that. Okay. But if we can't change, if we could just get that done.
Yeah,
that's historical.
I think the biggest thing is if you either charge these prosecutors, because it's crazy that you got to file some type of motion to get them to disclose all evidence that's favorable. That should be automatic. If it's favorable to find somebody not guilty, that should be automatic. I shouldn't have to rely on an incompetent attorney that may not file that motion. So they sitting back here with all this evidence knowing I'm free. I think that if you can prove that they are maliciously and trying to throw people away for no reason, I think they need to be charged, or at least hit that pocket. Hit it. Touch them. I agree. Pocket. You know,
I say both.
Yeah, or both. You know what I'm saying? So that is where the problem is at. If you can stop these prosecutors, half of these people won't go to jail. You know what I'm saying? Which now I'm in favor of people. You do something, you break the law, you go do the time. I'm in favor of that. But over sentencing, that's not gonna work. And another thing, I'm gonna tell you another thing that nobody has thought of. It's a lot of these crimes that's on the books that should not even be crimes.
I agree.
That will take an element of a lot of people that's sitting in prison. Because if you put somebody in prison for something petty as stealing a car, he just stole a car. You know what I'm saying? You put him in there with a whole bunch of killers, what's gonna happen? It's gonna turn him into a killer. You know what I'm saying? Because they're gonna try him all kind of ways. You know what I'm saying? And now he got to turn into a savage just to survive in there. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of these laws that's on the books, especially these victimless crimes, that need to be taken off the books. Okay. Possession of a fire. It's a lot of people sitting in federal prison right now. Possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. They are in there for just that. That needs to be taken off the book. Yeah.
I just had to switch my phone.
That's cool.
My sound went out.
That's cool, but that needs to be taken off of the books. It's really a crazy law, because if they take a whole bunch of these old laws, the laws from back in the day, it's 2025. People shouldn't be going to prison for certain stuff. You know what I'm saying? If you take a lot of them off the table, if you get these prosecutors, you penalize these prosecutors for knowingly trying to take somebody down, or not. And a lot of these dirty cops, we're in the process now. I caught a state trooper red-handed, and it's time is the time that I get the green light, we knocking the dust off of them. So it's a lot of these cops that are dirty, that need to be prosecuted themselves, man. But they getting away with a lot of stuff. You know, these commanders, the ones that's over them. Because when I caught them red-handed, I got you on camera. Even the commander tried to back him up. You know what I'm saying? So like it's a lot of this stuff that need to be changed for sure.
When you see people going to prison for crimes they didn't commit, it's because of two things: either manufacturing or planting evidence, which is probably one and the same actually, or perjury. So you got prosecutors lying under oath to grand juries, like what we experienced in my case, and then of course, you know, really when you lie, you're manufacturing evidence, really. But you know, if you plant something on someone or something like that, but also you got this other game that's being played with charges that really doesn't make sense. And I used to come across it every now and then when I was sheriff. Let me give you a good example. We had a young lady come to the courthouse and set off some firecrackers in the courthouse, and they locked her up, and they should have. But here's the problem. They locked her up with a section code of explosive devices, which does not fit. It was a firecracker. It was an explosive device. That charge can carry anywhere from 10 to 20 years. Okay, so when the family and attorney got in touch with me because they couldn't make bond or whatever, I couldn't figure out why you can't make a bond. And then I saw the charge. When I talked to my deputies about it, I was like, why are y'all charging her with that? And couldn't really get a decent answer. And I was like, okay, listen, you can't blow up the courthouse with a firecracker. Should she have done it? No. Yes, she should be in jail. Yes, she's crazy. But that's not the appropriate charge. I said, go to the DA's office and get an appropriate charge for it, whatever that would be, disorderly conduct, disrupting the courthouse, or whatever like that. Well, they came back to me and they were like, well, the DA said they're not going to do that. If we do that, they're just going to drop the charges. I said, well, I guess we're just going to drop the charges because we're not going to trial like she's the bomber or something like that when it was a firecracker. And you see people being overcharged, and you see these type of games being played, even like what you saw in my case. They took a civil rights violation charge and then used one word, pain, and asked, hey, did you feel pain? Okay, it's a felony. Because let's just say hypothetically, I wasn't supposed to put the people in the chair, which I was, and the policy supports it, and the training supports it. Okay. None of them were injured. None of them urinated on themselves. They're lying because they're hoping to get money and get their charges dropped, which a lot of them did get their charges dropped. And that's the deal that prosecutors will make with people to get them to testify. But that should be a misdemeanor if it was even legit. Of course, if it was a misdemeanor, I would have taken it to trial anyway because it's a lie. But they wanted a felony. Why? Because they needed a felony in order to get me out of office. So these are the type of games that they just don't play with politicians like me or celebrities like the Chrisleys or even what we see up on the presidential level. But they do this with people every day. We just don't hear about it because the person may not have a name or may not be or whatever. But this is the type of craziness that goes on every day.
Every single day.
Somewhere in Clayton County, well, not somewhere, we know where it happened. Yesterday, someone in Clayton County got indicted and don't even know he's indicted yet. Because they can go in the room, talk to the grand jury. You're not there. You're not notified that they're doing it. And you can't have your attorney there and can't defend yourself. And this is how this is how we ended up with the 19 million convicted felons that we have in the country today. So, you know, even though I'm running in the 5th Congressional District, this is a national race. I'm going to be reaching out to every convicted felon in the country. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. And y'all tell me what y'all think. Okay, the convicted felons feel like they've been removed from the political process. Okay, you can't run for office. Well, we know you can run for Congress. That's already been proven. And you can run for president. And I hope every convicted felon that want to run, because it's ridiculous that they can't participate in the political process. And there's a lot of times it's done like me because, okay, if this guy runs, he'll win. So we got to find a way to get him out. That's ridiculous. Okay, we got to get these laws changed so that they can vote. The voting should have nothing to do with that. But if you can't run for office, it can't stop you from getting your family and friends to run. It can't stop you from getting your family and friends to vote for someone that you know can actually do something to affect change. And guess what else they can't stop you from doing? They can't stop you from donating to a political campaign.
Right.
If every convicted felon in this country gives just $1, we'll outraise all these status quo politicians. And then if you married to one, dating one, the son of one, the daughter of one, a mother of one, or a friend of one, give $2. Let's break down this status quo politician of, hey, hey, I got a wife and family and a dog and I'm perfect. There is no perfect candidate. And they up there making stupid rules and not using common sense. And let's bring some common sense back. And if we get everybody who is related to a convicted felon to come and vote, every convicted felon to give $1, this will be a grass. Let me tell you this, and I'll say this, and I'm trying to preach here. I've always been an outsider. That's how all of this stuff got started. I didn't come up in the sheriff's office and I was handpicked by the local Democratic Party to run and say, yeah, this guy's the next guy. There was actually another guy that they said was next in line. I ran anyway because they said you got a right to run for whoever you want to run. And I won. And that's when you saw all of this craziness start about we're going to get him on RICO charges. We're going to get him on a restraint chair. And when you're not the status quo politician, or you didn't go and ask the so-called group who thinks they control politics, is it okay for you to run? This is the type of stuff they do. And that's what's called lawfare. Well, right. You weren't the guy we picked next to be sheriff. You're not the guy we picked next to be mayor or president or whatever. And then that's when you see all of these crazy indictments and stuff like that. Let's send them another message with this race.
Oh, absolutely.
Because this victory is bigger than me. This race is for all those guys back in Arkansas who stood there, who said, hey, don't forget us. And this is how you can help. Nobody listening to us. You got the ability, or, we don't know how to run a campaign. We never won, but you can. This is about their families, everybody else.
When you in prison, you don't have a voice. You really don't. You really don't. They throw you away.
Let me say this, because
yes, sir.
If what I'm hearing is true, and I think that it is, because they have sent you to prison, and for whatever reason, you didn't tuck your tail and run, and now you about to run for office. So you putting your life on the line.
I am, but guess what? Let me tell you. Here's what's going to be interesting about this, man. Okay, remember, a lot of people feel that they were trying to take me out by putting me in that particular prison, in that particular housing unit. But who would ever guess, man, that a high-ranking member of the Vice Lords would read my case and tell his soldiers, don't let anybody step to him, that a former drug lord from DeKalb County would be up there and say, hey, my family live in Clayton County. They feel safe with this guy. He's like Robin Hood. He said, if he was a bad cop, I would tell y'all, go ahead and shank him or do whatever, but he's not. Another drug lord who came on our podcast and endorsed me was there. Who would ever thought that? Well, let me ask you this. When I'm out campaigning, who better than the so-called thugs to protect me? You know what I'm saying?
No, for real.
Because look here. I hate to say, and don't get me wrong now, I had some good deputies and some tough guys. Not all, but some. But I can tell you this, there were some dudes I was locked up with. I would go through a door with them any day because they got some hard. So, I mean, if I got y'all two with me, I ain't really too much worried because most of the people in politics ain't got that type of heart anyway.
For sure.
That's for real. That's for real.
Yeah.
So I have one more thing. Well, two more things. Because I see that you got on Superman and you got on Batman. I just want to show y'all here go my superhero right here. This is my superhero. that's Andre 3000.
Yeah.
Hey, he's one of my heroes too. He's one of my heroes too.
Okay, so one of the things that I try to point out to my kids, my at-risk kids, just how illogical it is to just be unlawful. It just doesn't make sense. That being the reason why most people who go to college are less likely to go to prison, because the brain is fully developed and they're thinking on a different level. It's just not logical to break the law. Okay, so within that, so I go back to the origin of things. I think about slavery ended in 1865. Okay, so after 1865, we have sharecropping, which is essentially the same as slavery, because here we have Black people who are technically free, but now they have a debt because they're living on the same land and they're doing the same job. They're just accumulating a unpayable debt, if that makes sense, where they're going to be in the same place. So this takes place for a long time. And then as we begin to embrace our freedom, then we have a new industry. We have this prison. And so the prisons, when they go to a town now, one of the first things they build is a prison. And so it's a business. And then I started looking at drill music. I started looking at the influences. I was born in 1977. When A Different World came out, I wanted to go to college just because I seen Black people on TV going to college. But now also, when the movie Colors came out, when I saw those guys throwing gang signs on it, I wanted to be in a gang. So now, take this. Now, when Malcolm X came out with Denzel Washington, I made my mom go buy me a bow tie, and I went to the mosque. That I wanted to be a Muslim, so I was heavily influenced. But I had different things to pick from. But see, right now, when we turn on the television, I don't see a whole lot to pick from. And then on social media, it's not. So then I started thinking about some of the private prisons. And who's pushing this? You have been a victim of them clipping some of the things that you've said. Because if they took it in its entirety, it would mean something totally different. But
absolutely,
we're dealing with an epidemic where you have propaganda. And this propaganda, every night, I guarantee you, I can go up here and I can turn on the news. I'm going to see a Black person doing something bad. I'm going to see a white person being a victim. It doesn't matter what state I'm in. As long as I turn that TV on, that's what's taking place. So I'm saying it to say this is a well-oiled machine. And it is working. And if you don't catch it on a local level, if it's not DeKalb County, Clayton County, or Fulton County, then guess what? We go global. We go, and I'm not speaking up or defending any of these people. We go P. Diddy. We go Tyler Perry. We go R. Kelly. We got every time. And there's always a movie periodically that comes out that will make the Black man look like he is the worst sex-addicted, drug-addicted individual in the world. You have all these things. You have these machines to get behind, and I'm very open-minded, but I have heard this little boy, Baby Kia, rap, and it sounds horrible. And this little boy is talking about, this is for the life of me. I can't understand. I can turn to V103, 95 point, any radio station. I can hear Black people killing Black people, and it's considered to be art. But I've got Home Depot that advertises on this channel. I've got Kroger that advertise on this channel. I've got all these different corporations that advertise on this channel. Let me tell you something. You can't rap about accidentally kicking over a white cat in this world, but you can rap about killing Black people, and you can rap about disrespecting Black women. So I'm saying all these things to say, you got to fight. You got to fight on your hands, because you're going to go in here and you're going to work this. And you got my vote. I'm going to get a t-shirt and I'm going to donate. And if you need me to pick some trash up, I'll pick trash up too, because I believe in what it is that you got going. But understand that this is a well-oiled machine, and it's a business. This is their money. This is and it's job security. I spoke on the panel at Emory University in front of lawyers and district attorneys and all these different people. And so I was asked a question. A couple of guys, they were asked a question, and how can attorneys help individuals who are trying to stay out of jail? What resources do you have for them? And so everybody had a cute answer. And when it got to me, first of all, I had my bow tie on. So when I have my bow tie on and I brush my teeth, I'm about to give it to you. So this is what I say. I say, a lot of you guys have gone into debt, or you're going into debt you're in law school, and you're not going to law school because you think it's cute. You're going to law school because it's job security.
Yeah.
So when you ask a question like, how can a attorney or a lawyer help keep their clients out of jail, it's equivalent to me going to my barber asking him, how can you give me a haircut that will stop me from ever having to need a haircut again in my life? So I'm making a couple of points here, that the way that this system is set up, man, it's a monster. It's a monster, and we're the only country that operates this way. We don't have the highest prison population because we're the highest populated. We have the highest prison population because it's big business, and it's working the way that they work. But if you go in here and you start the all today system, man, you come up missing, man. You come up missing, and it gets very weird. It gets weird.
I don't disagree, man. You brought up like 3 or 5 good points. I hope I can remember all of them so I could talk a little bit about all. But the first thing that you said that caught my attention is you're right. Everybody, whether we admit it or not, is influenced by media, movies, TV, or whatever like that. I can remember when Miami Vice came out, all the cops was trying to dress like them. even yeah, no, I'll tell you. Even and the ones that were in uniform, they would dress like them when they were going to court, and they had these shoulder holsters. And you know, any real gunfighter knows you a shoulder holster. If I see a guy with a shoulder holster, we get ready to gunfight. That's over with. Because I mean, you got to come across your center to shoot. Yep. No real gunfighter has a shoulder holster. It looks cool, it looks sexy, but in a real gunfight, you're gonna die. Exactly. but you had all these cops with shoulder holsters running around trying to be Tubbs and Sonny. It was hilarious. And but then you see this, you know, and actually it probably started a little before then, but it was a switch because with the media, it really became cool. And I'm saying media, but we're talking Hollywood, whatever like that. It really became cool to be a gangster. I was actually at a conference and they brought up a point that if you look traditionally at cop movies over our lifetime, it's usually comedies, meaning that most people don't take black cops serious. They said the last police show with a black cop movie was In the Heat of the Night with Sidney Poitier. So you know how far that goes. Then the next one where he was taken serious was Denzel Washington in Training Day, and he was a gangster. He was a corrupt cop. Matter of fact, that was my nickname when I was in prison, Training Day. And you know, which if people knew the real story, that ain't the real nickname I should have had. But that's what it was. Some folks was convinced, yeah, that dude, he's from Atlanta, he's a real Training Day. But it's more, being a gangster has become more glorified. And I'm gonna tell you how this can happen in the black community, because man, we probably have to do 4 more shows now because you can't hit so many points. But let me tell you why the American gangster has been glorified in our community. Here's why. If you look at every other country and every other race, they have a warrior class. If you grew up Japanese, you got the samurai. If you grew up in Africa, there's a Zulu warrior. If you grew up in the United Kingdom, there's the Knights of the Round Table. Every place has a warrior class. If Native American, you got the Apache warrior or whatever. Okay, well, Black Americans came here as slaves. So our warrior class became the American gangster. The gangsters were the ones that they considered to be warriors because they're the ones that, okay, well, and a lot of them probably didn't have a choice anyway because there weren't no other avenues open to them. And I'm not making excuses because I've been a cop all my life. But so in our culture, that became the warrior class. And that's why you hear everybody talking about keep it gangster. That's why you see women that are business, but they more attracted to thugs because women are naturally going to be attracted to strength. And a lot of the dudes you see in politics and business are kind of wimpy. I'm not saying all, but a lot are. Right. So that became the warrior class. So then, unfortunately, what happened was music and Hollywood started glorifying the American gangster. And it became cool to be the bad guy instead of the good guy. we kind of right at that age where you see we even still wearing Superman and Batman stuff. We actually wanted to be superheroes, but now most folks now, I want to be the gangster. I want to be the whatever. Yeah. And so that's what happened. The only way I know to combat that is we're going to have to find film producers that can produce movies and stuff where it's cool to raise a family like you guys doing. It's cool to be strong and go and do such and such instead of saying, okay, hey, it's cool to carry a gun and just start shooting when anytime you get mad. But that's really what happened as I look at it through my perspective of spending the time I spent in the homicide and as a street cop.
Right. It's funny you say that because anytime if I post some ignorant content,
my God,
I'm gonna go viral. Now, when I'm talking to these folks with
they don't want to hear.
They out of jail. Don't do this. They don't want. I might get 5 views.
Them folks want to see blood and melee. They want to see violence, man.
They want to see violence, man.
Go in there talking some righteous, read a book stuff if you want to, man. You're not gonna get no views. This is what I do. So you know, I got 2 GEDs, so I think I'm smarter than the average bell. So this is what I do. I go violent, and then I give you something. Then I go violent, then I give you some more. And then I try. Even when I have at-risk kids, I have to drive them home. I say, okay, we'll start off listening to this ignorant. We're listening to your music, and then I'm gonna mesh mine in a little bit. And I hope it changes. I don't know if it does, but I just try. I used to do that with Ed, who is your son, who ended up being on my caseload. But I found out Ed was smarter than I thought that he was. But all the kids are not like that. And like you said, a lot of men don't get publicized for operating from a position of integrity or being accountable. Or guess what? Are saying yes, ma'am, and no, sir. Basic thing, walking down the street with a female and you walking on the outside. So if something does happen, you the protector. You see what I'm saying? I talked to a guy who is my age and I asked him what he was doing. He was like, "Yo, man, at home babysitting the kids." How you babysitting your kids? They your children. So here's the thing. This is what I need for you to do, and I'm gonna stop talking y'all head out. You got to have a license to go fishing. You got to have a license to go hunting, to fly a plane, to drive a car, to have. We need a license to be a parent. We need to have a parenting law because a lot of these people they have their license revoked.
You know, and that's not a bad idea because think about it. That's probably the toughest job in the world and the most important job in the world. But you're right. There is no class. There is no training. We all know how you can become a parent.
Right.
And that means, unfortunately, anyone can become a parent. And that doesn't mean that you're actually capable of fostering someone to raise them and make them into an adult, especially if you haven't become an adult yet yourself.
Right.
So, but you know what, though? No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say real quickly, in Kanye's, a man shot 3 kids. Okay. These kids was like 11, 12. They tried to break in the man's house. He didn't shot them. Now the parents, I think one or even all 3 of them may have died. Now the parents want to sue. Where in the world? I know where my 10-year-old at. I know where my 17-year-old at. Every time they move, I know where they at. How does that happen? How do you not know where a child is 12, 13 years old, he not in his room sleep? Everybody don't deserve a child. They don't. That's my thing. Everybody don't
agree.
Parent, man.
And sad to say, and let me tell you something, man. I don't know if people really understand how much prosecutors have ruined our society and our community. And let me tell you why I say that. Because they have destroyed so many facets of life, especially in our community. Because remember, parents are afraid to parent now because of prosecutors. Remember, they started locking up parents for corporal punishment. Now, we know there's a difference between corporal punishment and out abuse. I mean, if you break in a chair side a child's head or shooting them or stabbing them or something like that. Now, how many parents have gone to jail for spanking their kids when these prosecutors got on this new tip about, okay, whatever like that? So they're responsible for a lot of the decay in the community, because even the fact, why do you think law enforcement is so weak right now? You've never seen law enforcement this weak and this scary. And we need law enforcement to be strong if we don't want home invasion robberies or whatever like that. But they're afraid because they can get prosecuted over anything, like you saw them come after me. But they're prosecuting parents, they're prosecuting teachers. You know, now it became popular to not just fire the teachers, but lock them up. And now we see students jumping teachers. We see students spitting on them and everything. But all of that can be traced back to these prosecutors. I mean, even if you look at Clayton County, we got 2 coaches that were indicted for murder. Now, am I saying they didn't have any responsibility in this at all? Of course not. There was a female that was running track. She collapsed, and they were saying it's too hot, and she shouldn't have been out there training. And they're probably right about that. Maybe there's some civil responsibility.
It's not murder.
Or maybe at best involuntary manslaughter. But our DA indicted them on murder. Here we go again with this overcharging, because we know what murder really means. It's malice aforethought. You went out to kill someone today. So these prosecutors, if we don't find a way to check them, and there's certain things that have to be done, certain things, just like we take the drug dealers' ability away to sell drugs, we got to take away their ability to just indict people anytime they want to. Because then we get to what we're talking about now. You know, you're right. We need more parents, but the parents that want a parent are too afraid, because hell, they're gonna lock me up. So they're afraid of the kids. The teacher's afraid of the kids. The police is afraid. And it used to be those were the 3 things that kept order. Yep. You know, I had an old man told me, he said when he grew up, there was a triple ass whooping. He said, you go to school, you get it. Your parents gave it to you because the teacher shouldn't have to. And then nobody even thought of going out there and fooling around with the police. But now prosecutors have made those 3 entities afraid to parent, afraid to teach, and afraid to police. We got to get back to some common sense. I've said it before. I know it's going to upset. Let me say this too, because I don't know what our time limit is. I'm having a good time. I like talking to you guys.
Right. I heard that.
But a lot of people ask, okay, why are you running as a Democrat? And that's a weird question to ask, because I've been a Democrat all the time. But let me tell you why they ask, and it's not so weird. Because it was a Democratic DA that did this, a Democratic chairman, a Democratic appointed judge. But the reason I'm running as a Democrat is because I look at it like I look at my family. I got some folks in my family that are very, very questionable, and I had to call out, and they're wrong, but they still my family. So I don't disown them. I might dislike them, but I ain't gonna disown them. They're still my family. I dislike what they do. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that the Democratic Party needs strong masculine energy, and I think it needs some common sense. And so instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I'm going to go ahead and run as a Democrat, but run on common sense. Because again, we can't be, look, you guys have been in the system, but y'all not weak on crime. I could listen to talking to y'all. Y'all don't like all that craziness in y'all neighborhood, like you said, or whatever. Right. But Democrats right now have been weak on crime. Every city ran by a Democrat is overridden with crime. They're out of touch. We need some common sense. We need some strong energy, some strong masculine energy. There's nothing wrong with feminine energy, but there's more than enough of that. The county you're in is ran by all women, just about. I don't know of a man in office right now over there. And they seem to be nice women, but there has to be some male leaders somewhere, because we got to have some type of balance. So these are the type of things that we need to look at. You brought some good points, man. We could be on here all night, because you brought up like 4 or 5 good points. Yeah. And I guess we're going to have to get better to talk. But let me say this, man. I'm honored that that after researching and listening to everything I got to say, instead of just going with WSB TV, who they can't get a story right if they wanted to, that you looked into me, and it's an honor to know I now have your support.
Without a doubt, brother. I appreciate the opportunity. Before we get off, I have two things though. One is this. Have you tried getting a pardon from Trump?
No,
I already told you.
I
told you in the comments before we started talking. I believe you're gonna get that pardon from Trump.
I would try it.
Yeah.
And then my second question is, what are the top 3 responsibilities that you will have in the position that you'll soon acquire? What are the 3 top responsibilities?
I'm so glad you asked that question. So, because a lot of people don't know, okay, what does a representative does? And I was a representative on a state level or whatever. So let me say this to start out. I've always had, most people want to be senators, but I've always kind of liked the House of Representatives. And let me tell you why. If you look at the history of it, it used to be, the House of Representatives used to be called the House of Commons. And they used to have the House of Lords. So the House of Lords represented the aristocrat, and then the House of Commons represented the common man. So of course that's changed now. Everybody represents everybody. But because of that history, that's what I think makes this race so beautiful, because if you're representing the common man, who better to represent the common man than the so-called convicted felon status that I have now, right? So representatives, what they do is they're responsible for writing laws or amending laws or passing, new laws or everything into existence. So that's the main responsibility there.
Okay.
Now, of course, they vote on things that are broad measure, like the overall budget has to be voted in the House and in the Senate and everything like that. So kind of different than when I was a sheriff. My responsibility was the jail, it was the streets, and make sure the crime was down, and of course it was the security of the courthouse. So a lot of times people get in touch and we don't necessarily have authority over those particular offices, but we can contact those offices, or we can sometimes cause an investigation into those offices if they're not acting correctly.
Okay.
So that's basically what a legislator does.
Gotcha.
So I would be affecting laws on a national level. It would be federal laws. Like when I was a state representative, those were state laws that I authored and got passed into law. And then I would be dealing with it on a federal level. Now there are committees you sit on. So my committees would be more so about federal prisons, which is all over the country. That's the committee that I would love to serve on, because I was actually in federal prison. And then, of course, you're voting on a national budget and national issues and stuff like that. So that's where it happens. So when you look at the state capitol, that's a state level, but then at the U.S. Capitol, it's the same thing on a national level.
Okay. One more. I know that was is it possible for you to befriend these networks that have chopped and screwed some of your earlier comments?
I have never known where going to the teller of a lie actually gets the truth.
I heard you say that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But the beautiful thing now is, they're almost obsolete now. Now that social media, now that social media is there. And
the social media to get their news now. Yeah,
absolutely. And it gives me a chance to talk. I started that. I hadn't spoken to the media in over 13 years. I was in office as sheriff. The last 12 years I was in office, I didn't say a word to them. But what I did was I communicated directly to my constituent via social media, text message, whatever. And you hear it directly from the horse's mouth.
Gotcha.
Right.
All right. Hey, man,
just you got to hear about me from looking at podcasts and stuff like that too. But imagine if I got on there and talked with a reporter, they're gonna cut it and only play certain parts and spin it or whatever. So they're wasting time.
Listen, I ain't gonna tell you no lie. Like, I've been voting ever since I got my rights back, but I was always blindly voting. what made me really look at what you talking about, you know, what happened to you is how they did Trump. They waited all the way. They didn't, we all heard the call. What took them so long? Why didn't they do this in 2021, 2022? They waited all the way to 2024 and try to prosecute the man. Then they try to shoot his head off. Like they listen, when they can't stop you, and this is what I know for a fact. If Victor Hill wouldn't have got indicted and sent to prison, you probably have a 30-year run as sheriff in Clayton County, because them people love you. I swear they want you back right now. If you
And
can
that's
get
what
back, and they'll take you back right now. Because your election was always a blowout. It never was close.
And that's what District Attorney Tasha Mosley and Jeff Turner was trying to stop. And I write about it in that book. The whole story is in there in Vigilante. And by the way, there's a documentary coming out called American Lawfare. And that's going to expose a lot of it. And you're going to see that the relationships, you know, how Jeff Turner was trying to become sheriff, but of course he know he couldn't win it at the polls. And the relationships, the judge is friends with the political opponent. Her husband used to work at the DA's office at the time that they came at me with the RICO charges. And you get to see this web and how they use the criminal justice system is almost like a legal mafia in a way.
Yep.
And it talks about that. So, you know, lawfare is real. And like I said, you know, people get emotional whenever we talk about the president or whatever like that. But I always say this, and I'll continue to say it. If you don't like a person, you don't vote for them. And you don't indict them. Right. Yeah. You don't indict them. And you don't.
What they do when they know they can't beat you.
That's exactly right.
Beat you. They can't.
That's exactly right.
They got to use what they know how to use. And 9 times out of 10, they get what they need.
Basically what they're trying to do is circumvent the voters. And that's what happened in Clayton County. It's like, because, you know, you will hear the people involved in this. If you ever hear them talk or whatever, well, those people are going to vote for him no matter what or whatever. Well, that's the people's right and their choice. So they resent the voters. So they have to find a way to circumvent the voters because they know, okay, well, they're going to vote for him. We got to find a way where they can't vote for him. And that's how all of this came to be. That's how that book, Vigilante Sheriff, came to be. And what this documentary is about, and what I'm running on, that we got to always remember is not just me, it's not just the Chrisleys. This happens to the everyday man. When you listen to the stories of things that people have been locked up for, and how they went before a grand jury and told them something that didn't even. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, exactly, right.
You right there.
Exactly.
I'm gonna buy it right now, so you ain't got to worry.
Bro, send me the link.
No, that one there. No, is that one Vigilante Sheriff? Or that's
it say Vigilante Sheriff.
Right. I saw something else up there.
I didn't mean to kill your thought though, but let me see.
I saw another guy's face.
I found it. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Right. There it is. There it is right there. And here you go.
Yeah. Always, yes, sir. Always.
Oh, you should put the link in your YouTube description.
I did.
It's
down there. Yeah, I did.
Hey man, listen, I appreciate y'all conversation, and I know I don't see no gray hair on y'all, but I know y'all got it. I got it. So it's 2 things going on. I gotta use the bathroom, and I'm sleeping. And I'm sleeping. It's 10 o'clock.
You old, boy. You old.
It is 10 o'clock. I'm a grandpa. I'm gonna order that book. I'm gonna read that book. I might listen to it, but I'm gonna order that book.
I got the audio book right now. Just
okay.
Yeah. All right. I can't wait to hear y'all review. And hey, I enjoyed this. I hope we do this again real soon.
Yep.
Invite me as much. I like talking to both of y'all.
For sure. Hey, give me something good. Get the people something good on your way out.
Hey man, this is what I want to say. Remain teachable, man. Just because you go into a situation thinking a certain way doesn't mean that your paradigm can't be shifted, man. Sometimes you'll be used to shed light on some things you never knew about. But I just want to, today is always the best day of my life But my strongest attribute is that I'm teachable, and I look good in a pair of Michael Jordans, but I'm a stronger Scottie Pippen. I don't know if that makes sense. I look good in Jordans.
I hear you.
I look good in
I
Jordans,
hear you.
but I'm a stronger Scottie Pippen, and I just want to win. And if you're
I
gonna
think
shoot
you
it,
got 6
shoot it.
rings, too.
But sometimes you got to go get the Gatorade. But a win is a win, baby.
That's
Win
right.
is a win.
That's right.
Yeah.
Scotty got 6 rings too. But I'm gonna get up with you, man. I appreciate you
y'all.
tapping in, man.
No thing, bro.
Yeah,
It's an honor.
Yeah, I got the book. I just bought it, so I'm gonna listen to it. I
Can't wait for your critique.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So okay. Anything you wanna give? Like, I know this is the beginning of the campaign trail. Like it's about to be on. I can't wait to show up to the rallies. And when is the election for that anyway?
Qualifying will be in March of next year, and the races, they haven't set a date yet, but it's going to be May of next year when the actual election is. Okay, right. Yeah. So we're getting started early and getting all the ground stuff off, and I hope to have that comprehensive web page ready for you by the time we talk again.
Word.
And then we'll go for that now, and that'll have a lot of the platform and a lot of what people need to know there. Mm-hmm. And anyway, and hopefully you I hope to be one of your frequent guests, brothers. And I hope you come on my show sometime too.
I'm waiting for the invite. I'll be there, but this thing here, I'm trying to take this thing every day. So as soon as I'm able to kind of work, like I got 1 foot out the 18-wheeler, you know what I'm saying? I got 1 foot out. As soon as I get both feet out, yeah, I'm gonna be there. Be at some of the rallies. I might be live, Who knows, man? We're gonna put it together, man. Because hey, one thing I know, you don't lose. So yeah, we trying to make it the winning team. So
I appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I definitely appreciate you tapping in. We'll do it again.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Strength and honor, brother. Strength and honor.
Thank you for tuning into XconMedia. Go right ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hurry up!